Action fanatics, welcome to episode 151 of the Bulletproof podcast. We are on the road to WrestleMania. I am your host, Chris the Brain. Joining me once again, it is the Toyman, Chris DePetrillo.
I am here, ready for not only some bulletproof action, but some body slamming action here tonight.
Oh yeah, and here's a man who once got body slammed and was permanently injured for it, Ryan Campbell.
Yes, I am pointing at the WrestleMania sign as we speak, and it was a choke slam, technically, not a body slam.
It was a slam of, that's right. It was a choke slam that took out Ryan from his wrestling career. Rest in peace, Vu. Yeah, we're talking body slam. You know, it is, as I said, it's the road to WrestleMania. As this drops, we will just be days away from the big two-night event. Last week, we had the father of one half of the big main event, John Cena Sr. Great to have him on, Chris, and I know he was very appreciative that we had him on. So, you know, it's great.
Yeah, I spoke to him this week. As mentioned on the podcast, you could see the bond that he and I have formed over the years, and he was all too happy to join us. And I think we had a great chat. We had him on for about an hour or so, and then we talked to him a little bit off the record too. He loves to hold court. He's got plenty of stories, but he's also a movie fan. He's like-minded like you and I and Ryan and everyone listening out there. So it was great to kind of pick his brain not only about John's career, but some of his favorite scenes, some of his favorite movies. Just a great guest, and he did say that he is willing to do it again anytime we will have him back.
I'm certain we will take him up on that offer at some point. But let's talk about bulletproofaction.com, shall we? Because what a surprise last week. The return of Chad Cruz. Were you floored
just
when you
in
saw
time
that?
for WrestleMania season, like the surprise appearance or the sneak attack? Something like that is normally held for the Raw after WrestleMania, but we got an advanced version of that with Chad's return.
I was going to say you could tell it's a WrestleMania season because, I said last week, our numbers were up and everything was good. And all of a sudden, here comes the part-timers looking to cash in now.
Oh, the Hogan syndrome, the Hogan effect.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that Chad Cruz is back, and hopefully we'll see more of him on the site and maybe even hear him back here on the show. We'll work on that and get work around his busy schedule and try to get him on. Ryan Campbell, as this drops, you would have already covered the first episode of The Last of Us.
Ooh, and as we're recording, I haven't even seen it yet. Future Ryan, tell me what happens.
I don't think
does not work that way.
No,
well, I'm very excited.
That's only worked one time, and that was when a future brain came and told us that we were going to cover Time Cop, and that worked. It was true. It worked out. So it is possible, but it's not probable, I guess.
Dang. So everyone just have to go to Bulletproof Action and read my
that's right.
breakdown and observations. Usually try to get them out pretty early on Sunday evening, just because I'm watching it right away. And one of my favorite things, no matter what they put into that Sunday night HBO slot, whatever it is, just seems to be like the internet just goes nuts after they come out. Like one of my favorite things about Game of Thrones back in the day was just browsing Twitter afterwards, reading theories, everyone kind of breaking it down. It's one of the things I love about kind of appointment watching that I don't like about binge watching. And I think these shows like this give us that. So I try to get it out as soon as possible so we can all talk about it together.
Yeah, it's rare to have that appointment watching in today's world, but there's certain shows and certain things that can make that still happen, and it's nice to see. Chris, you will be the day before you wrap up
Daredevil Born Again, which I am caught up on, and I'm not going to spoil my review, but I have just been so pleased with where they've gone with this. I was a fan of the first episode, but where they're at right now with the story, with the action, this is just some really great stuff, and I'm looking forward to talking about it.
And I mentioned The Amateur on our last podcast. I actually got to go to an early screening for it. I was surprised to see it, and I was like, oh, I'm going to take advantage of it. Love that movie. And another movie that just came out of nowhere for me, I know I'm out of the loop, but was G20, and what a freaking die-hard-tastic movie that was. 2025 is delivering some entertaining action movies. Are they the greatest thing of all time? No, but are they entertaining? Hell yes. And that's what
That's
it's
all
all
we can
about.
ask for.
One more thing about the road to WrestleMania while we're on that wavelength. I will be back on the sports book with Nick and Gio with my official predictions.
Ooh, times are tough, Brain. Economy's hitting everybody hard, so we're counting on you to get us all out of this.
I believe we're recording on Thursday night, so it will probably go up shortly thereafter. Obviously, follow social media, and I will post that link, and I'm sure Bulletproof Action will.
Was it SummerSlam or Survivor Series where you were perfect?
I think it was both.
You're so modest.
I know. I think it was. It definitely was SummerSlam, but I think I followed up with Survivor Series. Rumble, they got me with that Jey Uso win, but that's good. That's the magic of wrestling. Sometimes they throw a curveball in there, and they did on that night for sure. So yeah, that will be my predictions for WrestleMania.
We're putting it in now. Don't forget to Venmo Brain a few bucks as a thank you.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
You degenerates never throw a
they never
throw
do.
a bit his way when he makes you all money.
Never do. They're making big money. I'm over here just counting pennies. It's
The
awful.
everyman, the American dream, Dusty Rhodes style.
I always like, I should probably put some money on these bets, but if I did it, I'd screw it all up. I would jinx it all. So I just stay out of it. All right, guys. WrestleMania, Body Slam, released on May 21, 1987. Directed by Hal Needham. I know one of Toyman's favorite directors.
I'm playing the music in my
Hal
head.
Needham, also responsible for another 80s cult classic, one that just celebrated its day, Rad Day, but Rad was directed by Hal Needham. And what a 1-2 punch we got. We got Rad and then Body Slam. So Hal Needham knew exactly what notes to hit when it came to the stuff that I was enjoying when I was a youngster in the 80s.
Of course, he also did Smokey and the Bandit 1 and 2 and Cannonball Run 1 and 2. Yep. So yeah, if there were stunts involved, and he was the guy, he was like the go-to guy. I can tell you, and I can't do this with a lot of movies, but I can tell you the exact day that I first saw Body Slam.
Let's hear it.
Really?
Yes. It was Tuesday, December 13th, 1988. I remember, I think the PWI had something about Body Slam, and it was I never saw it at a video store though. And at that point, I don't think it was on cable, or at least it wasn't on any of the channels that, if we had Showtime, maybe it was on the HBOs, or if we had HBOs, I don't know, but it was on pay-per-view.
On pay-per-view.
And December 13th, 1988 was the night, Ryan Campbell, you know about this. It was AWA Super Clash 3.
Was it truly? Okay. But was it truly a Super Clash?
It truly was, but it also truly was not on my cable system. And I don't know if I just was like, it was so, like, I knew it wasn't like I was expecting it to be on. I knew ahead of time it was not on, but I guess I just had that, like, I'm missing out on wrestling. And I asked my mom if I could order the movie Body Slam instead, and she's like, I don't freaking care. So yeah, I watched Body Slam that night instead of Super Clash 3, which was actually worked out because I think by the very next week they were starting to show all the matches from Super Clash 3 on free TV. So great businessman, Vern Gagne.
You got him.
The 10 people who did order probably were really pissed that they did when it was on ESPN the next week. But yeah, it was that night I watched it, and it was everything I'd hope it would be, and then some. It starts off, it's just a black screen, and you hear the sound of wrestling commentary, crowd noise. Our play-by-play man calls for a body slam, and there's where you see the body slam graphics come up. We go into the music, and we get the opening credits. And Chris, we meet our protagonist, M. Harry Smilac.
I'm Harry Smilac, played by the great Dirk Benedict, who was most famous at the time for being Templeton Peck, the face man on the A Team. And as you watch Body Slam, M. Harry Smilac and Face Man, they're not too different. In fact, I would say that Harry is probably face without the military discipline.
Yeah, he's probably a little bit more unlucky. He's like Face's unlucky twin brother.
I was gonna say, yeah, they're not entirely different. He's just failing at everything Face succeeds at.
Correct. And we first see him, he's cruising around in his Ferrari. He thinks he's got a woman's attention, but he really doesn't. And that's like, oh, this isn't the face man we're used to seeing.
We've all been there.
Oh, yeah. Then Harry parks his car outside of his office. It gets repossessed.
Is that Jason Alexander who keeps repoing his car?
No.
Definitely looked like him.
It was not. It was not. So then he gets like, oh, my car's been repoed. Call my lawyer, Sheldon Brockmeister, played by Barry Gordon.
There's some
Where's
great
Barry
last
Gordon
names
from,
in this
Brain?
movie.
What's that? What's he from?
Where's Barry Gordon from?
I don't know, but I do know that he was the president of the Screen Actors Guild at one point.
He was?
Did you know that?
I did know that.
I saw it on the interview on the special Kino Lorber Blu-ray. He was interviewed on there.
Barry Gordon actually has somewhat of a link to previously discussed things in the world of Bulletproof action. It's not the character work that he did by appearing on Barney Miller, Fish, or Three's Company. It is that he was the original voice of Donatello.
Oh,
that is right.
And
yeah.
he was even brought back to be Donatello's voice in the video game that they just released a couple years ago, Shredder's Revenge. It was like the rehash of the arcade style beat 'em up. And it was the first time that he did Donatello's voice in a video game. But he was Donatello and he was Bebop.
A figment of all of our lives.
Oh, well, there you go. Barry Gordon. Good for you. So we find out, getting his car repossessed is just one of Harry's many problems. He's also been subpoenaed by a credit card company. He's facing eviction. But his guy, Shelley, is going to help him out with all that because he's got quite a deal for him. He has been roped in to this Norton Wilshire for governor campaign, and they need to come up with a big fundraising event, and they want big stars. So who better than this great agent / manager Harry to get this entertainment? Who better? I would think he might be able to, like, he knows that Harry's somewhat shady, so I question Shelley's judgment here.
He must just assume at some point he must have had some acts that were a hit because
yeah, they do say he used to be the hottest.
Yeah,
thing
he wouldn't have all these people that he could at least even get to the point that he could just blow them off if he didn't have something to go by. So maybe he just thinks he can drum up enough old names to make it work. But we're 5 minutes in this movie, and we have a Smilac, Brockmeister, and Vendor Vagan. There's some amazing last names in this movie. You'd think Vince came up with them himself.
Bitsy
It was
Vagan.
Bitsy, Bitsy, not Betsy. Bitsy.
Right.
It's a very Hollywood sounding name. Bitsy.
And Bitsy's the one who is going to feel good if Norton is servicing her every night or something.
As her senator brain.
Of course.
Out of the gutter.
But Harry doesn't want to be involved with politics. He's like, no. I got to turn you down on that. So then he hitches a ride on a moped where apparently he told the driver that he was Clint Eastwood. And he needs some wheels, so he stops by to see his buddy, Scotty, played by John Astin, at his car dealership. And boy, does he pull it. This now is pure face man.
Yeah, he
laying
has
it on real thick, telling him he's going to get him to a Springsteen concert. There's going to be girls, and this is John Astin too. So he's promising, an older man, the company of a younger woman, go to a concert with
Mhm.
one of the hottest acts in the world. He's laying it on pretty heavy so that he can get his way.
Yeah, and they turn out to not be Bruce Springsteen tickets. Instead, it's for a Jewish yodeling festival.
Well, he thinks he gets them too. He's like, "How about I'll hold on to the tickets?" And he's like, "All right, here you go." So he thought he was. He didn't trust him, and he still got screwed.
Yeah, he did, and worst of all is he like, oh, that's my landlord's car, isn't it? Well, why don't you just let me take it, and I'll drop it off to him if it's ready to go. So now Harry has his landlord's car, and next time we see him, he's arriving back at his place with his date. And that's when, before he can maybe seal the deal, Ryan Campbell, he's paid a visit by Mr. Kim. And did you recognize Mr. Kim, Ryan?
Oh, man, you're really putting me on the spot here. And
that's right.
You always do this with people of certain ethnic.
No, it doesn't have to do with the ethnic.
Well, because now when I get it wrong, it's a whole, they all look the same kind of thing.
Oh, jeez. You're digging your own hole here. Anything? You got anything for us?
It's one of those things where I was like, I'm sure there's something I've seen him in, but I didn't dwell too much on it, if I'm being honest.
Think canon, Mr. Campbell. Think canon.
Well, that doesn't narrow it down. They're all in every movie.
He is from American Ninja.
Ah, okay.
He was the one who trained Joe Armstrong to be a ninja. John Fujioka.
Didn't you just watch that one too?
I watched American Ninja too, but he is in there in the flashback
Gotcha.
footage from the original. And he's, of course, there. He's not there alone. He's representing Korean Savings and Loan, but he's got his two collections officers with him, the Samoans.
Oh, I know who they are.
The actual Samoans, folks.
Yeah.
Don't be misled. This is Afa and Sika in the flesh.
And I do like the line, I didn't think anything of it probably the last time I watched it even, but when Harry asks him, do you guys have any kids? And obviously Sika, well, they both have kids, but Sika, father of the tribal chief, Roman Reigns.
That's right. Bloodline runs deep.
WrestleMania tie-in here on Bulletproof Action.
Mm-hmm. I am acknowledging my tribal chief here in my studio here.
As well, you
put
should.
The ones up.
And we see the Samoans rip apart Shapiro's car, since Harry does not have the $67,000 or whatever, 19 cents, I believe, is the end of it. But yeah, he owes a lot of money.
This also begins one of the running gags in this movie that doesn't quite age well, of him constantly confusing Mr. Kim for either being Chinese or Japanese, and he goes, "I'm Korean."
Right.
But that's not even near the worst that we're going to get here in a little bit.
We saw that in Mission of Justice, too, when there was the drug deal or the arms deal going down.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Stop right there, Chinaman." He's like, "I'm Korean. He's Chinese." And then the guy with the machine gun came out of the van.
Yeah, it's a very common gag back in the day.
We also get corrections instead of collections. So yeah, there was some humor that was commonplace back in 1980s.
It's just the beginning, brain, though. We're going to get pretty.
Oh, I don't even want to go there. So the next day at his office, Harry's like, "Hey, Shelley, I think I can do that Wilshire fundraiser because he obviously needs money and he needs it bad." And he's got his landlord pounding on the door outside and calling Harry a bastard.
Bing.
There you go.
I thought he was talking to me. I got confused at that point in the movie.
Well, you should respond to that name.
I was worried it was my landlord banging on the door.
Harry. So Harry, first order of business, Harry's got to go to the convention center because they're going to host this night for Wilshire. But of course, since he doesn't have a ride, he ends up getting there an hour late. to meet with Tom McMillan, who runs the convention center. But in the lobby, Chris, he does meet a young lady, Missy Roberts.
Yep. And who immediately is like, "Why are you talking to me? My uncle says that anybody who talks to me is just a pervert."
Perfect. Yeah, that's what you. Yeah, she was raised right.
By who though, Brain? This is the beginning of this.
By Rick.
Why?
She said her
What
uncle.
happened? Why not just make him? Why not just make her his daughter if he's going to spend the entire movie with them? What's where are this girl's parents? I need to know, and I have a theory.
Well, please share it.
You want it now?
Why not?
I believe.
Were they body slammed?
I believe maybe, but I do believe that Rick Roberts' sister tragically died, and he is taking care with her dying words. She expressed for him to take care of his niece. And that's what the headcanon I had to come up with as to why this little girl's with him at all times in this movie.
With no brother-in-law, maybe both. So maybe that's how he's a babyface that was working for the heel manager. He had to just do what he had to do to make ends meet.
He owed money to Captain Lou, who had his family killed or something. I don't know. Let's tie that into it somehow.
Great dark spin on Body Slam, Ryan Campbell.
Oh yeah, this is not. I'm glad we didn't wait to hear this theory.
I was adding to it right there, and that wasn't part of my original theory.
You did. I got another one for you, Ryan, because we cut to Tom McMillan's office. Tom McMillan. Did you recognize him?
I did. Is he in Back to School?
That is correct.
Yeah, let's go. You
Mr.
got me with that
Mellon.
one other time.
That's right. Phil Rubenstein. He's good. Mr. Mellon, we want to talk about your property in Florida. I got to watch that. All right. So, yeah, he's there, and he's being tough with Rick on negotiating, but Harry keeps popping in, and eventually he just interjects on behalf of Rick, cuts him a good deal. So then outside, Rick's like, "Hey, man, thanks so much for what you did. I've been looking for a manager, or new manager, really, because I'm not happy with my old management." Hires him on the spot, and that's, of course, when
Captain
Rick's
Lou's
old manager appears.
I guess his managed senses were tingling or something. He just appears there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Captain Lou Morano, played by Captain Lou Albano. Big stretch for him there, Chris.
Yeah, the only thing stretching were those rubber bands attached to his cheek. But we're keeping kayfabe alive here because this was filmed in '86, released in '87, so they were not about to reveal the inner workings of wrestling. Captain Lou is not only a manager at ringside, but he's purportedly the manager of everything. Taking the Paul Ellering route, if you will.
Yeah, he's accompanied by the Mad Russian, played by Alexei Smirnov. The Russian bullies Harry, bends his cigar, and just threatens bodily harm before Rick just knocks him out. And Harry's like, "Wow, this music industry, this isn't the same as it used to be." And that's when he finds out he's now in the professional wrestling business.
And did you notice what Smirnoff did that has now actually become somewhat of a meme? So Body Slam was a little bit ahead of its time. The Mad Russian was wearing an Adidas tracksuit. Little did he know, 30, 40 years later, Russian tracksuit mafia would become such a meme that Marvel Legends actually has a tracksuit mafia action figure.
That and Rounders.
Yeah, true. Yes, Rounders. That's a movie I didn't think would get mentioned here tonight. So Harry goes to this planning meeting at Bitsy's house, and where he makes a lot of, he doesn't have many details. He's just kind of speaking in broad strokes, and he's very much distracted by a sunbathing Candace Vanderwegen.
Because you got to get your sunbathe in when the sun is at its perfect moment, and it doesn't matter if your mother is having a press conference right outside. You got to get it in when you can get it in.
That's, I think, what Smilac is thinking too.
Can give it a shot.
And of course, Candace, played by Tanya Roberts, Toyman.
Are we going to talk about her early work like Beastmaster, or are we going to talk about her later work like That 70s Show?
Right. Either or. Beastmaster, which we have covered here on the show before. Check it out in the archives.
And That 70s Show, which we have not.
And what about A View to a Kill, which we mentioned we may cover?
That's true. That's true. The James Bond connection. You know what? I actually thought of Beastmaster ahead of that. I didn't even think of that.
And she was also Sheena. Was she not?
I believe she was Sheena.
Mm-hmm. Well, she was sunbathing, and Harry's like, hey, you should consider modeling. And she's not buying any of this bullshit.
Not
she
yet.
sees right through him. Not yet, right. Now, we cut to the gym, and this is where I'm going to take umbrage with something you just said, Chris, about this movie keeping kayfabe.
Get him.
Because we have Rick, played by Roddy Piper, if we did not mention that, talking to his buddy Tonga Tom, Tonga Kid, a.k.a. Sam Fatu.
More bloodline.
Father of Jacob Fatu. It was like 2 years prior that these two men were in a blood feud because Roddy Piper murdered Jimmy Snuka with a coconut.
But at this point, we were leading up to Piper's big babyface, quote unquote, retirement, which would be coming up at WrestleMania. And Tonga Kid was gone at the time because he didn't come back until, was it late 86, early 87 to be a heel in the Islanders?
Well, he was a babyface first, but yes. It was 80. Yeah, sometime in 86 he had returned as Tama and teamed up with
Piper turned babyface against Adonis in what, like mid 86, late 86? So that if you want to go by the rules of wrestling where the guys are on the same side and they kind of forgive and forget, then this would make sense.
Yeah, it does make sense in the 80s WWF terms. Because
it doesn't have to make sense that they would be what they are in the movie, just that they would film a movie together. So if they're both baby faces and you're going to say, well, they were able to just let bygones be bygones to film a movie together and, take a shot at Hollywood, I think you can let it pass.
It's almost like the storyline that Cornette had to do with when the Bashams got called up to SmackDown while they were feuding in OVW. And he had to basically make the Office the main heel and be like, he told my guys the only way they're getting contracts is if they team with each other. It's blackmail. So maybe it's something like that.
Maybe. They just both wanted to be Hollywood stars so badly that they were willing to put their past differences aside. But yeah, Rick is there talking to Tonga Tom, like, hey, I got this new manager, Harry. You should talk to him. Oh, well, I'm interested in that. But then we meet two more. We meet two of our big heels. We've got Axe the Cannibal, played by the Barbarian, and Hammer the Cannibal, played by T. Khan, who Lee Marshall would call, I don't remember if he was ugly or uglier, but Brian Campbell, I know you remember those days at the Showboat.
That's right. I love Showboat Clown sitting there front row.
And Soldat Ustinov. Well, they confront Rick at the gym. And then we find out that Tom, they stepped into a private office. Tom is like, I've now officially hired Harry. Harry's like, hey, Axe and Hammer, you guys want a manager too? He's like, he's riding a wave now. And no, that's not going to happen because the Cannibals are Captain Lou's pride and joy.
The tag team champions of the world
for the last 5 years.
That's right.
So I guess we're to assume that they must have been the equivalent of the NWA tag team champions, because as we'll see, the baby faces kind of bounce to different little territories. You don't want it wasn't the indie world, different
Right.
territories, but everybody made a big deal about the Cannibals being the World Tag Team Champions, even on a wrestling talk show, as we'll see momentarily.
Number
Mhm.
one talk show.
Well, before we get to that, we've got to go to Los Angeles Sports Arena for the very first tag team match with Quick Rick Roberts and Tonga Tom as a tag team, taking on an unnamed masked tag team in the
Not the
main event.
Executioners,
That may have been. I know they were
Dos
supposed to take on
Hombres.
the Invaders in the second match, but that didn't happen. But we'll get to that too. But it could have been the Medics. Usually the white masks were like
That's
the
true.
Medics.
Yeah.
You get legendary Chick Hearn on the call.
Indeed.
That's a big get this time in
In
Los Angeles. This is the voice of
Did
the
he just
Lakers,
come-
man.
Did he come with the arena? I don't know.
It's entirely possible.
So yeah, the voice of the Lakers for decades is in Body Slam.
Retired. He's not jersey retired, but he is in the rafters of Crypto.com Arena.
He should be. So yeah, they win. Spoiler alert, the good guys win. So in the locker room, Harry's like, "Hey, Vic Carson is called for you, Harry. He wants you on the show." And first, he goes, "You mean Johnny Carson?" No, Vic Carson, the host of the number one talk show on TV, Ring Talk.
Not just for wrestling, the
popular
number one
than
talk
the
show on
Show.
TV. Yeah. That somehow he would not be aware of.
Well, you know what, though? And I'm sure this was a takeoff, obviously, on Tuesday Night Titans, which I believe when it first hit USA Network, it was like USA Network's number one show. This ridiculous wrestling talk show.
That's how hot it was at the time, Brain.
Yeah, so that became the number one show on USA for a while.
Although this version looked like an SNL skit, very bare bones, public access studio-ish, not a lot of glitz and glamour. Although Vic Carson was played by one of my favorite people because you know how much I love the old school match game. It's kind of a family tradition to watch a couple episodes a week here, thanks to the wonders of Buzzer and YouTube. So it was
I love
very
Buzzer.
very nice to see Charles Nelson Riley dip his
Uh-huh.
toe into the world of wrestling by
Yes,
playing Vic Carson here.
He's excellent. And it's a very special edition of Ring Talk because it's all about the wrestling managers, and he's got the old pro, Captain Lou. He's got the newcomer, Harry, and he's got the specialist, Tim McCluskey.
A giant in the industry, Brain.
He really is. Played by the one and only Billy Barty, one of my all-time
favorite people, Brain.
Oh, I love Billy Barty, of course, who brought one of the greatest characters in the history of cinema to life, Gwildor in Masters
Because
of the
why do you love Gwildor so much? Because you hate who?
Oh, Orko?
Yes.
I hate Orko. I love Gwildor. In fact, I would go so far to say fuck Orko.
There you go.
You know there's a Gwildor Orko 2-pack out there right now?
I've seen it, and I'm like, oh, I would buy. Oh no, I'm not gonna buy that. That's how much I hate Orko. I will not even buy it to get to Gwildor.
I need to know what's the strangest ongoing trend this year in the Bulletproof podcast. Is it our obsession with Gary Robbins, or is it that fuck Orko has been said like 3 times?
It has? I don't even remember saying.
I know at least one other time in the past few weeks it came up.
Fuck Orko.
On the air or one of our off-air rants?
It's hard to say, but I thought it was on air.
It could have been one of those nights where we finished and Brain's like, hey, Masters of the Universe is on. Fuck Orko.
Mm-hmm.
Could have been.
I've got a real potty mouth. I should watch myself. Anyway, speaking of potty mouth, Tim McCluskey says some things that we're not going to repeat here on the program, but he says it multiple times.
The crowd has signs up.
They did. It was a different time.
Let's also talk about the crowd that they did the sight gag thing with the crowd. There's some nuns. There's
it really was an SNL bit. This whole
bikers.
sketch is an SNL bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, bikers, nuns, little people with signs. Apparently, this movie's had a real like little people versus another kind of people
Yeah, maybe they were fighting over
situation.
who was the more oppressed
I
minority or
don't know.
something. I don't know.
I don't know. But the whole appearance does not end well for Harry because when
I'm
they
pretty
go
sure
into
the nuns were
commercial,
heels too, weren't they? Like,
they liked Lou.
yeah, yeah, they
Yeah, they
literally
had the
just.
sign that said "Bless you, Lou."
Yeah, and yeah, Lou during the commercial break dumps Harry out of the ring. And so the next day, it's no surprise we see Harry wearing a neck brace when he announces the talents he has
I will
signed to
say
appear.
he is learning about the wrestling business well. As a manager, you get tossed out, that neck brace goes on, ham it up. He's learning quick, brain. He's natural. A rookie sensation, you may say.
Yeah, definitely could. And he's there. Here's the night for Norton. We got all these fantastic Frank. He doesn't give full names. He just says it Frank, Barbara, Julio. And then he takes another run at Candace, and he does convince her to go down to the A&W for a little lunch. And he's like,
Big
"Hey,
spender.
you could even drive." What's that, Toyman?
I was gonna say he's a big spender.
Well, that's his
And
angle. She was not impressed with his money, and his angle was to, during the day, light lunch in a crowded area, you can drive. Like it's going to be very low stakes. He is he's meeting her where she's at, and also he is playing up the neck a little bit.
he is playing it up, and he's using that because now he's like, okay, I'm in now. Maybe I can get her to drive me home because I might have a spasm, and that could be very dangerous while driving.
Can't have that, especially in LA traffic, brain.
Right. So they go back to Harry's place, and it's like deja vu because once they arrive, Mr. Kim and the Samoans show up, and this time instead of like tearing parts of the car off, Chris, they just muscle this thing over the edge.
Yep, rolling right down the hill. Kind of reminded me of the sequence in Johnny Dangerously when his brother's car doesn't have the brakes and he's going down the hill and he's like, "Oh my God!" This seemed to be a very repetitive scene in the '80s. The old, goofy car going down a hill, as opposed to the Fast and Furious crashes we get these days.
It did
Yeah, they
also
bro-
just really mess with my depth perception. Like when they were starting to flip the car over, the shot is overhead, and I'm like, oh, this thing's gonna go tumbling. Like his house sits on the L.A. cliffside, and we're gonna cut to a shot of it rolling, top or head over heels 20 times and exploding. And no, it just kind of like falls off a 5-foot lift and then just like falls down on its side. I'm like, oh, okay, I thought that would be worse.
And
yeah,
now
they
you would
roll the.
think with the amount of trashing the Samoans are doing to Harry that they might be getting their comeuppance from his newly formed tag team.
They do
You
not.
would think that.
Sam knew not to mess with the elders like that. Uh, but yeah, the rolls got rolled, and it belonged to Bitsy.
Oh
It wasn't
no.
even Candace's car. So, now Bitsy's pissed. She's like, wants Harry fired from the fundraiser, but it's too late. They're down to days away from this thing. And she's like, Candace, I don't want you ever to see that man again. So Harry, now needing to get an actual act for this fundraiser, goes to his other clients that were meeting for the first time, the rock band Kicks, who will later be renamed Kick. They're practicing in their garage, and they obviously have not seen or heard from Harry in quite some time, so they're a little bit surprised. But he's got a gig for them, and that's what they want. But boy, they didn't want this gig, Chris.
No, these young rebel rockers don't want to rock out for these stuffy political types, and these stuffy political types didn't get their Frank, their Julio, their Barbara. They got Kicks.
Kicked in the ass is more like it.
And boy, this
And Rick
is
rolled Rolls Royce off the side of a cliff.
yeah, this makes major headlines. This whole fiasco. Not a lot must have been
Simpler
going on, and
times.
not much. It must have been a slow news day because it's on the front of every newspaper. Harry is now in drag, and This reminds me of one of my heroes, the late great Gorilla Monsoon, who on commentary, if ever a manager was not at ringside, he would wonder if perhaps they were in the crowd in drag. And the only person who ever called him out on this was Nick Bockwinkel. Everyone else just went with it. Nick Bockwinkel asked the question that I know I always ask myself, why drag? Does
I wonder if
anyone
that
know?
was a McMahon mandate.
I don't think so. Because these were those like the arena shows that I'm sure Vince never saw 1 second of.
Didn't
Certainly
pay
was not,
attention to, yeah.
unless it was the
He
Garden.
wasn't watching
He was
the
there
Boston
for the.
Garden or the Spectrum.
If it was Madison Square Garden, Vince would have been there. But was he really paying that much attention? But yeah, Boston Garden, Spectrum, Toronto Maple Leaf Garden. Vince didn't see any of that. He didn't have time. That was that was one of Gorilla's go-tos.
You probably got a kick out of it.
He did. I know I do. So yeah, A Night with Norton is a disaster, makes headlines. Harry's now in drag, sneaks into the arena for the next match, and this was the scheduled Rick and Tom versus the Invaders. Again, we got the legendary Chick Hearn with Jay Johnstone as his sidekick on the call. But the Invaders have been replaced by the Cannibals.
Card subject to change, Brain.
I mean, and this is one of the rare times where the card subject to change would actually have been better for those who paid, because who the hell are the Invaders? You're now getting the
They got invaded.
They did. The 5-year reigning tag team champions of the world. That's a much better thing for more bang for your buck. They immediately throw the ref out. Then they got chains and they just attack Rick and Tom. They throw Tom out. Lou's on the outside stomping on Tom. Inside, they're just double teaming Rick, hanging him with the chain.
Bleeding.
He gets color.
These guys bladed in a movie, man.
Harry gets involved, ends up getting in an airplane spin, then slammed out of the ring. It is not a good day for our heroes, Chris. It was a disaster, really.
No, total thrashing by the Cannibals, continuing to build them up as the heels, even more so than the Samoans at this point. And, it's not a good day for the poor sap in the wheelchair that Harry comes across later in the day or the next day, because he's about to roll right into traffic for one of those traditional 80s off-screen sight gags.
Yeah, this movie loves its gags. It's got quite a few little ones like that. That one probably gets the most setup time than any of the others, but yeah, it ends with the dude just chairing everything face first on the windshield of a car.
Take that, sucker. So Harry goes up to visit his fallen friends, and they're laid up. And Harry quits. He's like, you need somebody better. You need.
Couldn't help but think Harry with his like scruff there sitting looked a hell of a lot. Oh shit, what's his name? Bradley Cooper. He looked a lot like Bradley Cooper, who played face in A-Team that we covered here recently. Like when he's sitting there on the edge and he's down and out and he's got that 5A the shadow going on. I was like, damn, he looks a lot like Bradley Cooper, who plays him in the A-Team movie. So that was we said that was perfect casting before, but even more so if you've seen that big. So that's exactly what I saw that.
Yeah, because after Harry does quit, obviously some time has passed because Rick is out of the hospital. He goes and sees that depressed 5 o'clock shadow having down and out Harry Smilac, and he's like, there's nothing we can do. And that gets Harry's wheels turning. And Harry has an epiphany, and he's like, we could just hit up all these small markets like we used to in the old days with the bands. You got to get out there, grassroots. You got to work your way from the bottom up.
That's right. Sometimes to go forward, you got to go back.
And start making towns.
Making towns in a old school bus. And we get a little bit of a montage. And basically, the plan is back-to-back nights. You have kicks one night, wrestling the other, or vice versa. It's a great strategy by our man Harry. But then fate steps in San Bernardino, California. When Harry, thinking he again has these back-to-back nights, finds out from Elmo and Elmo's computer that they only have him booked for one night.
That hog auction's a big what to do in San Bernardino.
Yeah, that hog auction is something they look forward to each and every year. So they can't move that. So now what is Harry going to do? Epiphany number 2, rock and wrestling.
Boom. Took us a while to get there, but we're finally at the rock and wrestling.
Indeed we are. So we got the Kicks concert, followed immediately by a quick Rick and Tonga Tom open challenge, where if the challengers could beat the professionals, Rick and Tom, they will get $1,000. And the first to answer the challenge, Chris, is Pee Wee Hutchins.
Pee Wee Hutchins, the suspenders and
His
all.
brother, Little Will, who, what a shame that this was not 10 years later when Little Will could have been played by Gary Robbins.
That was exactly
How
what I
great
had
would
in
that
my
have
notes.
been?
That was where I was going to put in the Gary Robbins reference. That would have
But
been perfect. Perfect.
I did not know that San Bernardino was like a hillbilly section of California, because
Right.
they're kind of playing it up like it's a very redneck backwater town. I thought San Bernardino was pretty much just kind of like a regular California city. Maybe it's not LA, maybe it's not San Francisco, but I didn't think it was, some backwoods hillbilly land.
It is, and it's sponsored by the Wild Pair. The Wild Pair. Get a pair tonight.
Ad break.
We get organ music versus rock and roll music. How about that? Did you expect that when you turned this movie on?
Luckily,
Mashup.
luckily they shut that down pretty quick. And old Kicks, does a little rock off with the organist.
Da-na-na-na-na-na. Right. When it's all said and done, I mean, the people were just jizzing their pants. I mean, this is the greatest show San Bernardino's seen.
Take that, hog auction.
Right. I mean,
and fuck
hog
auction.
Let's not talk about hogs after a comment about jizz. Let's make sure that people know where we're going with this one.
Well, yeah. I would hope that when it was done, Kicks was like, follow that, hogs.
Right.
It's such a success that they now upgrade to an RV. So we get a montage of them traveling around, making towns. One of the towns, a Rolling Stone reporter finds Harry, and he wants to do a cover story on this rock and wrestling.
Turns out there was really, again, not a lot going on in the news at this time for them to end up on the cover of Rolling Stone.
Oh, and what a shitty cover, too. I haven't seen, obviously, every Rolling Stone cover ever, but they're usually, some of them are very iconic. I don't know that any of them ever looked like the Rolling Stone magazine we see.
Just like a live photo, not like a studio shot.
Yeah, you would think, like they would have done a studio shot with like, why couldn't they have done that? Explain it to me, Chris.
Or maybe it was one of those made at the mall jobs. They got it done quick. They didn't have the arts department working that hard on it. Hal Needham was just like, get me a Rolling Stone cover quick. Okay, let's go down to the Galleria, get this printed up real quick. Here you go.
I didn't care for it. I wanted a studio shot. Could have been the cover of the fucking movie.
You got your two wrestlers in the front, like in a collar elbow tie up with the band behind, all kind of posed like band looking. That'd been beautiful.
That.
Or you could have the band acting all crazy, like raising their guitars up, like, we're coming at you.
Or they're all just choking each other, kind of like fighting, like, everybody. Yeah.
I like when bands look band looking. That's the best way a band should
look. That's
look.
what you pay for in this podcast, is to get some insightful dancing with the words, like band looking.
Well, we should note that for all of the tie-in that's going on here, they don't really establish all of the individual members of Kicks.
Not
They're pretty
important.
much just Harry's band, Harry's clients. You don't
Yeah.
really get any crossover between them and the wrestling thing other than them having the concerts at the wrestling show.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
There was like, I think in the RV part, there's a shot where like Tonga is like looking at something with one of the band members, which I feel like I remember it sticking out and being, because I thought I had the same observation. I was like, the only time that we really saw them interact with each other is the band people and the wrestlers.
Did you notice some of the posters in the, I don't know if it was in the RV or in the bus? I saw Sheiky Baby, and I saw Mad Maxine.
Oh.
So yeah, the Rolling Stone.
Enough, Mad Maxine.
Yeah.
What is she most famous for?
Not being in the Hulk Hogan's Rock and Wrestling cartoon like she was supposed to be.
Exactly. So there is a rock and wrestling tie-in to Mad Maxine.
Yeah. I just saw her on an episode of Continental Wrestling that got uploaded to YouTube. She was in the corner of Norvell Austin against Adrian Street and Miss Linda. There's a completely random fact for everyone. All right.
Were they wrestler looking or band looking?
They were wrestling looking. So yeah, Rolling Stone's pretty big, but there's one big thing that they have not done yet. And that is win the World Tag Team titles from the Cannibals. But Captain Lou's not going to agree to something like that. It's, especially knowing, he did the whole sneak attack. That's the only way he wanted to fight Quick Rick and Tonga Tom. But Harry has an idea. And Chris, we go back to Ring Talk.
We do go back to Ring Talk, and they decide that they are going to move ahead. It's a winner-take-all match. And we also get some more ball busting between, what is it, Tim McCluskey? Is that Billy Barty's name?
Tim McCluskey. He's good.
Tim McCluskey and Vic Carson kind of doing their little tit for tat. And then was it Albano that knocks him down?
Yeah, Albano. Yeah, Morano accidentally knocks Tim off his stool, and he gets too fired up with the Harry thing. I did want to ask a question again, a wrestling related question, because it's winner takes all. Harry will have to retire. Captain Lou Morano will get the contracts of Rick and Tonga Tom, and I will guess, assuming that Harry would get the contracts of the Cannibals. I don't know.
No, they just get the titles. They're one of the titles.
Now, whichever manager got them.
You're putting a hat on a hat, Brain.
Thank you.
Whichever manager got them, what do you do with the secondary team now? Because if there's really only one World Tag Team Champion here, like NWA style, what's the sense? You're not going to make big money on the second team. What purpose did they serve to you?
It reminded me of something. It reminded me, the NWO storyline was obviously a huge storyline. To this day, people were wearing NWO shirts. It turned the tide for WCW. But it was always like, okay, it's going to be WCW versus NWO. If NWO, they could take over. So then what would NWO people would just, they would just have to fight each other then? Would they just become a wrestling organization?
Like, what was the end goal? What was the end game? Yeah.
I don't think they had one. I think we saw that with the first Sold Out when they were like, oh, we'll just have WCW people, but it'll be like, our rules, no rules, and it'll be all dark with bikers and women. Like, I don't think they really had that one fleshed out. It's almost like the only way you could have pulled it off was if we win, you guys' contracts belong to us, and you could do a thing where
would they be friends then, or would they still just fight like they've been fighting? So what's going to change?
They're making the rules now. They're in charge.
Well,
Yeah, it's like, oh, Dean Malenko is only going to get a cruiserweight title shot if he beats, Six. Oh, he pinned him. Oh, but his shoulder was like slightly off, so we're going to restart the match, and now it's a submission match. Oh, but he didn't tap out. He just passed out, so we're going to wake him up and do a Texas death match, like that type of thing. You just keep kind of moving the goalposts.
See, you got to play the long game like DX did. Now they run the show.
Right. They literally did take over. Took them a while, but they got there.
That's what I'm saying. It's the long game.
Yeah.
Cerebral assassin.
It just made me think about that for whatever reason. I probably should have just went and watched more Continental. So Harry has something he wants too. He wants to get back in the good grace of Candace. So he goes over to the house, pretending to be a flower delivery man. And he gets inside, and he Candace, they go upstairs in the private elevator. And then we see him being romantic, and Harry wearing some kind of short set from the video for summertime. And
wear short shorts.
So they're back on good terms. Now it's the big night, which is being described as the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Academy Awards rolled into one.
That's a heck of a night. We got the number. This, if nothing screams like 80s wrestling. It's stuff like this of like the biggest talk show, Rolling Stones, the Super Bowl, the World Series. It just hamming it up, just making everything seem like it's the biggest thing to ever happen in the history of the world.
But you know what? To kids like me, that was the truth. That's what we wanted to see. To us, it was absolutely the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Academy Awards. I did, as much as of a movie fan as I have become in my life. When I was 6 years old, I didn't care about the Academy Awards. Award shows were boring. Give me some wrestling.
Right. Because the movies at the Academy Awards were not the movies that I was interested in. I mean, once in a while, one would sneak in there, but no. Come on. You know who showed up at the parking lot? It's Mr. Kim and the frickin' Samoans. And they find Harry in the parking lot. But Harry, very nice move here. He's like, oh, you know, he makes it like his car, like Captain Lou's car is his car. So there's
Captain
car
Lou
number
parked among the fans and walked in among the fans. This is not like the, private parking or anything like that. This is, the front of the arena where everybody's gathering and commiserating.
I'm pretty sure he bought a ticket.
Just barking to get out of the way. He may have even parked in the handicap spot, so he deserves what happens here because his car is just completely destroyed by the Samoans. Then we cut to the inside of the arena, and the front row is filled with luminaries, folks, because we've got the Nature Boy Ric Flair, Classy Freddie Blassie, Chic Adnan LKC, and the living legend himself, Bruno Sammartino.
And about 20 people from different Netflix shows we cut to.
Oh, no. Vic Carson and Tim McCluskey on the call as this event
What happened to Chick Hearn? Why would you not have him do this?
Well, just a minute. Then Kick, the newly rechristened Kick, kicks off the show, but they only go so far before the Cannibals and Captain Lou interrupt. And of course, the irony, I guess we didn't point out, Captain Lou Albano was a huge part of the rock and wrestling thing. I mean, without him, the rock and wrestling thing wouldn't have happened. It was a chance meeting with him and Cyndi Lauper that made that whole thing go. But here, he's very much against it. So that proves that Captain Lou had acting chops.
And I guess that kind of goes against the kayfabe conversation from earlier, because at this time, Captain Lou was also a babyface manager.
Yes, he was. He was.
So he was playing against type here as much as he could.
Of course, he had years of experience of being a heel manager and managing tag team champions as well. I mean, that was
like the Samoans.
Like the Samoans. Mm-hmm. Well, once they come out there, it's like it just spreads. There's chaos everywhere. It's pandemonium.
Someone just jumps Bruno Sammartino.
The guy who was the referee earlier in the first match, Jesse Hernandez, jumps Bruno for no apparent reason. Must have owed him trans or something. I don't know. So yeah, we got chaos in the crowd. Vic is up there. He's like, he thinks he needs to go down there and do something, but Tim knocks him out with his cane.
Who's going to fill in?
Meanwhile, the faces come out of the locker room because they hear about all the commotion. And here you go, Ryan Campbell. Chick is back.
Hey!
He joins Tim in the booth for the call of this big match that is as big as the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Academy Awards combined. And like any good match, the heels start off. They get the heat on Rick and Tom. And of course, that just sets up for the biggest babyface comeback in the history of wrestling. And guess what, guys? The good guys go over at the end.
That's how it should be.
Also, the first and only time that Roddy Piper wore a cape instead of a kilt.
Nice observation. So yeah, there you go. They win. Ref hands them some cheap-looking belts, and we are
credits roll right to credits.
Rolling the credits. We don't have any.
And everyone lived happily ever after, and they went home to their planet.
Ending just like No Retreat, No Surrender, with a big celebration in the ring.
Indeed. Ryan Campbell, your final body slam thoughts.
It's a fun movie. It definitely is a time capsule of the time, and if you know. Even a little bit, or I don't have as much knowledge about 80s wrestling as you guys have, but I know enough to just kind of know the names and kind of what things were going. It's a fun little watch. There's some good gags. Definitely some things that you go, well, you can't do that anymore. But yeah, a good time, and especially right around Mania season where you're just soaking in all this stuff.
Yes, absolutely. The perfect movie to watch on WrestleMania week. Chris, your final thoughts.
I've said it many times before we landed here tonight. I reviewed this movie several years ago when the Kino Lorber Blu-ray came out. This was one of my favorites as a kid. It remains a favorite to this day. I'll do a rewatch, probably like once or twice a year. It definitely gets watched, especially when it's popped up on things like Tubi and MGM Plus as of late. But I'm always happy to revisit this one. Happy to talk about it here tonight. One of my favorites from my youth, and just a fun film. You've got Dirk Benedict from the A-Team, Roddy Piper at his peak. What's better than that?
And I remember just thinking, like, what is with the A-Team and wrestling that it's like so intertwined? And
same audience.
I know, exactly. It's like I watch both, so I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But at the same time, wow, like you've got all this happening all at the same time, and Hulk's on the A-Team, Mr. T's at WrestleMania, Dirk Benedict's with Piper, Captain Lou. What an amazing! It's like it's really.
And you know what? If it wasn't for the lawsuit that held this one back from theaters, maybe we would have gotten Body Slam 2, where the Samoans took on Quick Rick and Tonga Tom.
Maybe, yeah.
Because we never saw them again after this. They trashed Captain Lou's car, and then that was it. It's like, storyline over.
So they must have been so satisfied with enough vehicular damage that it made it even. I don't know.
Because I assume this was filmed after WrestleMania 2 when Piper took a hiatus.
Yes, I believe this was filmed in like July of '86 or so.
Yeah. And that's probably then when it was done, when he came back, Tama came back, Captain Lou kind of wrapped up that was the end of his run, managing the machines and George Animal Steel still. So yeah. But yeah, there was a lot of issue and again, that's probably why, while I knew of its existence, never saw it at the video store, and had to wait for it to finally pop up on pay-per-view. I remember my parents would not let me watch Hell Comes to Frogtown on pay-per-view. I think they saw the preview of that with the adult themes to it, and we're like, no, you're not watching that. But Body Slam,
that probably saved you some money.
Yeah, Body Slam. Yeah, I was able to convince the $3 rental or whatever it probably was at that point to do a movie, especially a movie like Body Slam, not like it was the brand new blockbuster coming to the pay-per-view. All right, Body Slam again. It is WrestleMania week. We're just days away from it, so perfect movie to talk about. But next week we're going to be talking about a Richard Norton movie. It got 53% of the vote on our social media poll. Equalizer 2000. And if you want to follow us on social media, we are at Bulletproof Pod on X and Blue Sky, and at Bulletproof Action on Facebook and Instagram. But again, 53% of the vote goes to Equalizer 2000, a post-apocalyptic movie. And we, other than maybe Hell Comes to Frogtown, I think we haven't done a post-apocalyptic movie on the show, so that's good. That's something different. Are you excited, Ryan Campbell?
I am. Yeah, I was trying to think. I mean, closest thing I could think of was we did Running Man not too long ago. That's not quite post-apocalyptic, but it kind of feels like it. But yeah, let's do it.
And yeah, obviously, we lost Richard Norton late last month, and we definitely wanted to do something for him. Really, somebody who, we talked about this last week, Chris, he did so much in front of the camera, behind the scenes, with the stunts. He was a heel, he was a face, he could do it all. And he deserves to have an episode devoted to him.
Absolutely. One of my favorites, we've talked about the China O'Brien films in the past. Before we started recording, we were talking about things like Magic Crystal, the Lady Dragon movies. I know that you're not a huge fan of Iron Heart, but that is one that I always kind of go back to from being one of my favorites from the video store era and the HBO and Cinemax action movie era. But Equalizer 2000, I haven't watched it in a while, so it'd be nice to revisit it. And, it's always good to talk about someone that you appreciate their work. And Richard Norton is definitely one of those guys. So looking forward to paying tribute to him in the weeks to come.
Also, definitely a shout out to Val Kilmer, who we lost recently. Just last weekend, I watched Batman Forever and Heat back-to-back evenings. So it was a little bit of a Val Kilmer tribute weekend, which both were really enjoyable. Maybe we can find a movie of his to do here in the near future. But yeah, definitely another one we lost just here in the past few weeks.
Yeah. Also, Wings Hauser, we lost him last month as well. I don't know if we ever mentioned it here on the show, but the PM Entertainment podcast did an entire tribute episode to him. So check that out. He was in he was in a lot of the B movies. The one I finally watched recently was LA Bounty, and that is definitely one that at some point we have to cover here, because that was something special, as Booker T might say. Ryan Campbell, I know you're busy with our YouTube channel.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to everybody that's gone over there. Just keep building momentum, which is in the YouTube game. That's all you can really ask for. Just trying to get caught up on some of the older stuff that we've been putting up, and we're constantly putting up some archived editions that may be buried in the website feed. So you can definitely check those out there. Please like and subscribe. Lots coming up. We talked about Andor. We talked about Last of Us Season 2. It would already be started by now. I don't know if when I finish it, but Black Mirror's new season comes out. So we're going to do a ranked article on that once I get a chance to watch all those. Love, Death, and Robots just announced. It's going to be doing another season soon. That's one of my other favorites. So lots of stuff going on. I doesn't even get started on all the movies that are going to start coming out now that we're heading into blockbuster season.
And yeah, up on the YouTube channel later this week, our Wrestling Goes Hollywood Countdown episode that we did about 2 years back when WrestleMania was back in LA.
That was a fun one. I
remember
that one.
Tough and Deadly, Roddy Piper, Billy Blanks that we covered earlier this year. We're again catching up with the 2025 episodes that we did not post on YouTube. All right. Any final words from you, Toyman, Chris DePetrillo?
For all the fans out there listening, please go to bulletproofaction.com. Check out the most recent No Surrender Cinema, which covers Angel of Destruction, a little-known Corman Sirio Santiago collaboration that may seem a little bit familiar to you if you've seen pretty much any of their other films. But it was interesting to kind of go back to that one. Like we talked about, Daredevil's going to be wrapping up, and I will have my review of the entire season of Daredevil Born Again. And keep checking out the podcast. We've got the special episode with John Cena Sr. from last week. Our good buddy Chad Michael Collins had joined us earlier in the year to talk Sniper. Plus, You get to hear us talk about some of our favorite movies, Full Contact, Mission of Justice, Kickboxer 2, all up now on the YouTube channel. So go give us a click, give them a listen, and come back for more next week.
Yep, we will be back next week with Equalizer 2000. I want to thank everyone for checking out our Body Slam episode. And as always, stay tuned for more of the Bulletproof Podcast.